kind of an informal panel. We're all just going to sit on the stage and kind of tell stories about how we use ProPricer, what we know about it, and how we got to where we are. So we've got a couple of people who've agreed to participate in this, but we hope to kind of share stories amongst each other throughout the week. So hopefully when we network, we all have the opportunity to talk and learn and figure out better ways to use things. So first up, we have Ben, our government representative. I don't know where we're supposed to sit, but there you go. Next up, we have Les. And Scott. Finally, Bruce. Go ahead. So we'll start off by kind of introducing ourselves and saying who we are and why we're here. I'll start with myself. My name is Michael Weaver. I'm the Product Innovation Director at Executive Business Services. It's my job to put all the things in the application that you want to see. So for those of you that have been here before, come to the enhancement meeting and make those requests. It's, Nick and I are responsible for making sure that ProPricer does everything that you tell it to. That's why it's always your fault when it doesn't work the right way, because we get to place the blame squarely on you. Been doing this for a while. I think this is my 12th conference. How many? I didn't get a chance to see everybody's hands go up earlier. How many people is this their first time here? All right, that's a pretty good amount. It's kind of sad there's no open bar for breakfast, but we'll get there. Why don't we go ahead and start off? And
my name's Ben Lindholm, and I work for the Department of Energy. My job there is a senior federal cost estimator and in charge of the procurements at the Hanford site. So we're introducing the ProPricer for the first time through the acquisitions. So we're developing the tool so that the source evaluation boards will have their reports. So I've been an estimator for about 26 years, mainly in the private sector, and I've been with the government for about 3 years now.
Okay.
My name is Les Flugum. I'm with Lockheed Martin. I've been a ProPricer administrator for 18 years. Helped introduce our tool way back in the 86 days into our division, and have grown it into supporting our teams across Lockheed as we've grown and added more divisions to that. It's been an interesting evolution of the tool, and seen that, like I say, grow from a desktop application where we used it to an enterprise-wide set of our databases and the various access points we have across Lockheed. So it's been a very good tool for us as we've again integrated into our businesses as we create our proposals.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Whitlake. I'm the Corporate Pricing Director at Leidos. And what does a Corporate Pricing Director do? He helps his company win good business, which is kind of what we're all about. To signify the beginning of my ProPricer journey, coming out of my office yesterday, I actually pulled something off the wall. And what it is a certificate of completion for ProPricer training from 1993, which as I look out into the crowd is probably older than many folks who are out there, so I'm kind of dating myself. Of great interest is the name of the customer support trainer, Ken Silver. All right, so Ken was the beginning to my ProPricer journey 25 years ago.
And I can barely see you out there, but I know you're out there. I can hear you breathing. My name is Bruce Canwell. I am from BAE Systems Electronic Solutions in scenic Nashua, New Hampshire, where it's a lot less humid than it is here today. I am the pricing process, tools, and training manager for our ES business segment. And I've been with BAE Systems for 22 years. Just last week, I did a fundamentals of ProPricer training for a batch of summer interns and some new hires. And looking out at those people who are primarily, college juniors or seniors or just fresh out of college, I said, it really hurts me to tell you this, but I've been in this company 22 years, so longer than some of them have been alive. So I've been a ProPricer user since 2011, and I helped train our staff as we moved from a prior tool that we had into ProPricer. And so we trained in the summer of 2012, we trained over 200 persons to make the transition. And there was, as you can imagine, some reluctance in some parts of the company to embrace the new. But here we are now, 6 years into moving to ProPricer, and I don't even hear even the most reluctant die-hard for that old tool does not talk about that old tool anymore. Everybody is very happy where we are in ProPricer.
That's awesome. It's interesting that we all kind of get settled into using the application or applications in general the way we learned how, right? And so this is an opportunity for us to all sort of share how we use the application or how we share proposal information back and forth. How many people know that there's a government edition? How many people have a government agency that's willing to use ProPricer or uses ProPricer that they can submit their proposals through? What about subcontractors? How many people operate as a prime where you can use the export subcontractor feature to share information back and forth? Okay, so this is one of those examples where we get to kind of tell stories about how we use it and how it goes back and forth. We try to promote the concept of synergy by doing this government pricing summit where everybody from the smallest or largest subcontractor through the prime, through the government agency, can all share and pass data back and forth very quickly, and it really streamlines the process. It saves the time of recreating the proposal or having to rerun reports and do those types of things that, you're kind of having that hassle of going back and forth and getting that done. So now I'd like to kind of hear what your experience has been with getting ProPricer up and running or off the ground and how you've used it to share that data back and forth. So I guess we'll start here again with you.
So as a government agency at the Hanford site, we have 2 contractors that currently use ProPricer. So our agency decided we needed to have these big files, and so we had the load files. We use it for our evaluation of their proposals or their change orders. We also compare it against our independent government cost estimates when they come in, because we do FAR-based contracts, and so it's very easy for us to use ProPricer as our tool. We bring it in, we get to see how the contractors are putting their proposals together, make sure they're compliant. As everybody knows, when you read FAR, you have certain regulations, you have certain cost tables that you have to develop. So what that has done for our agency is it allows ProPricer has a platform so we can design those reports. And it helps us because we're required to do a technical evaluation and also a cost price analysis. And with the ProPricer, when the offers bring them in, we're able to use the platforms and pass them out to our subject matter experts without them having the knowledge of how to do ProPricer. So we can build tables with quantities and resources and hand them off. So for our agency, it's just been flexible because we have a platform and we're able to put it into Excel, into our reports, customize it. We're also, the biggest thing with ProPricer that we're finding out is one of our struggles is as a government agency is when we make adjustments to the offer's proposal because of a technical or a cost, we are able to use ProPricer as our most probable cost adjustment. So it's been really good to have the files from the contractors. We don't have to guess how they put their markups on, the algorithms that they put into them. So it helps the agency. We've been able to reduce our staff, reduce our time. We're able to get these proposals out, evaluated in a much shorter amount of time. The government's not so fast on evaluations, but a lot of our downfall is our resources and our money. So ProPricer has been very good for us, and the agency has seen huge reductions in resources and time to put it through. So we use it from an evaluation standpoint, and we use the government edition. in our next acquisitions, we are using ProPricer as our tool. We don't require the proposals to come in that way. We have a load file that we'll put into them, and we'll utilize ProPricer as our tool, so we can develop our cost tables and our reports for our subject matter experts. So it's been really good. It's new. The government's a little bit always behind in technology and processes, but because our contractors on site use ProPricer, and that's the estimating software, the government edition has been great for us because now we get to use it. We can normalize the data. We can do a lot of different things with the tool. So that's how we utilize it. And really, we're at the Hanford site, which is in Washington State. So we're out in front, bringing it back to here in the Washington, D.C. at EMCBC is our corporate place. And so we've been going through with them how we use ProPricer. So it's been a really good product for us, and we've embraced it, and hopefully we'll get that going to other agencies too.
Okay.
And from our perspective, we've been able to make that happen, provide these files. Again, it's a one-button push of the extracts for the government edition. Makes it very easy to pass it on to the government customers. We have several with Lockheed that are accepting these files, and we even saw one RFP recently that actually preferred the file. They didn't require it, but certainly preferred it. So it's been a very successful approach to being able to quickly pass our information after we've reached our initial baselines. We've had a number of cases where customers have sent back an archive file from the government edition, and we have restored them back into our system for evaluation purposes as part of negotiations, and again, helping to speed up negotiations as we work with the government customers. So it's been a very positive aspect of it. Also, I don't know if we'll talk about it later, but I will mention we did also have a very successful interchange with a subcontractor where we did use the subcontractor import-export, and that also worked well. We were able to get additional detail into our prime proposals. We did have there's a little bit of a challenge with the mapping. We'll talk about that later, but we did accept their data. Their data came to us as priced subcontractor cost, and we just burdened it from there. But their host resources the original resources were all oriented toward their internal labor as well. So interchanged both with the government and our subs on this one. So.
That's perfect. That's exactly what we're here to talk about, is going from start to finish like that. So that's cool that you have that experience.
So I guess that's all covered for now. So.
Okay.
Yeah, as I mentioned, my experience with ProPricer goes back many years. And over the time that I've used the tool, I took it upon myself to really learn it, right? ProPricer is not something you put on your desktop and become a power user right away. It takes some training. It takes some effort, which is, a great opportunity for everybody here today to get there. But it's an important point because I always look at ProPricer users. There are kind of two flavors. They're the ones that are, not quite sure exactly what the capabilities of the tool is, and then there are others that know it, right? And within my corporation, I want the latter, and you just don't want it. You got to work to get there. So just offering tremendous training resources so that we can pick up the tool and really know how to use it. Back about 10 years ago, we introduced the tool at my company, and at that time, I would say that I knew more about the software than anybody in the company, and that was the last day that was true, because everybody just took it and ran with it. So I think that's an important point. Getting comfortable with the tool is key to your success, and there's a lot of power to it, a lot of neat things you can do. So again, great opportunity here today for many of you to get to that point. Right now within my corporation, we kind of have three different user sets. We've got a large central pricing organization that prices most everything that we do. We also have a couple of programs that really embed ProPricer into their EVMS program. I'm deeply embedded into their EVMS programs. So they make great use of it that way. And we also have a field pricing operation. Some of you may also do something like that with, the smaller opportunities that you price, mostly on-contract ECP type stuff. You might have project controllers or program finance folks also participating. One of the keys to our success within the corporation is making sure we've got the infrastructure to succeed. And what that means is, having resources in place, somebody you can pick up and the phone and call and say, hey, I've got an issue. Excuse me. Can you help me out, right? So we certainly have invested in those types of resources. Another key point is having some strong IT help along the way as well, to help you administer the program a little bit as well. So it's been a great journey for us. We've had a lot of success with the tool. And the key for me is once we converted to ProPricer, and so many moved from an Excel-based environment to Excel environment to ProPricer. Our mantra was ProPricer first, Excel by exception. And that's what we live by. We try to use it in every case that we can. And you get a lot of interesting commentary with ProPricer users. And the ones that really haven't been through a lot of training, they'll tell you things like, well, gee whiz, I'm looking at a government evaluation model that's in Excel, right? Don't I just need to use Excel to get there? The answer is no, you don't. All right, so we've mastered use your structured environment that is ProPricer, poured it into, your final deliverables afterwards, and have great success with that. So I look at that as kind of a crutch, and the key between those who think that way and don't are the ones that really haven't learned the tool to the degree that they need to. I reached out to my team before this session because I wanted to have a little bit of more facts and data on the government interface that we have. We haven't had a lot. We've only had a small handful of opportunities come our way where we've had the government on the other side actually using ProPricer. So we haven't had a great deal of experience there.
The experience that you do have, though, how's that gone?
It's gone really well. Within my corporation, it's a large corporation. I often draw the analogy, the number of proposals we put out the door is analogous to leaves falling off trees in the fall, right? It's big business. So we do a lot of work, and having, Michael, that structured environment that is ProPricer enables us to do that. Building new models all the time, or even using ones in Excel, on a continuing basis. I've always been unsettled with that, right? It's like the day that we went to ProPricer is the day I slept a lot better at night, right? If you're a big Excel user within the government contracting realm, can you do it? Absolutely, you can do it. But I tell you what, when I was in that mode, what would happen with me is you'd get done a huge deal, and would you sleep well that night? Not too terribly, because you're wondering, did I QA everything? Did I catch everything that might have gone wrong? And you just don't know. You can be the best Excel modeler that there's ever been. And some of you are probably saying, I'm better than that, right? There's a gotcha there. There's a gotcha there. And having the structure environment that is ProPricer enables you to, your algorithm's used right. Once you put the data in that the math's running right, it's all structured in a way that you can report not only externally, but internally as well, right? It's like, and I laugh because, we came up with a series of reports, and it's like, we've got internal customers that say, I want number one with a Diet Coke, this particular report to understand where we are with a particular aspect of the bid. So, the ability to take a structured database, slice and dice it a million ways, answer any question both an internal and an external customer might have is pretty solid stuff.
Okay.
And we're sort of in an evolutionary point, I think, with ProPricer. When we brought it on board, my business sector is geographically diverse, and we have acquired companies along the way who have done things in different ways. You know, it's the same old thing. You give 10 people a problem to solve, and they solve it 10 different ways. So we've had to, when we moved to ProPricer, we recognized one of the first things that we had to do was sort of try to give a solid footing, a consistent footing across our business footprint, so that we could be developing data the same way, so that we could bring more commonality from our location in New Hampshire all the way to our business office in Honolulu. Those are the lucky people. And so that was one of our first challenges, and I think we have been largely successful in that. But we've been so concentrated on building and refining our capabilities within the pricing community and within the larger finance community, because we use ProPricer to manage very small programs rather than try to do any sort of significant earned value for, you know, a six-figure job. It's just as easy to put it into ProPricer, time phase it out, and then measure your expenditures against your plan and be able to work that variance. So we have a broad user community just beyond the pricing world that needs to be trained and experienced. So it's taken us a while to get there. I've been in my current job since September of last year, and one of the many items on my docket is to see if we can evolve ProPricer beyond the finance community. For instance, we have a significant number of estimator licenses. We have yet to use ProPricer Estimator, but I am encouraging that. And, you know, we know there's going to be some training involved. We know there's going to be some pilot testing involved. But I can see, much like when we first brought our finance community into ProPricer in 2012, I can see there are going to be some groups that are going to eat Estimator like a kid in a candy store. And there are going to be other groups that are going to drag their feet and be kicking and screaming every step of the way. But we've dealt with that before in the finance community, so that's a challenge that I think we're certainly up to. And I'd like to be able to see us reach back more through the subcontract community and perhaps do some of the things, Ken, that you're talking about already doing. We're a step behind you there, I would believe. But I think we can catch up to that pretty quickly. At least I certainly hope so. And the government community has really yet, that we're dealing with, has really yet to catch on. I mean, we deal with everybody from DARPA to obviously the major branches of the military, to NASA, to the Office of Naval Research, which has this onerous Excel format that they insist upon seeing. So we build all of our ONR proposals in ProPricer so we know we have the number right, and then we go and we recreate it in Excel. Does anybody have to do that sort of thing? Yeah, how much fun is that? Yeah, exactly, no fun. But we hope that we can maybe drag some of the customer community into the 21st century with us. And interestingly enough, our local DCAA, DCMA have expressed interest in knowing more about ProPricer, to the point where they go like, hey, nudge, nudge, can't we have one of your licenses so we can maybe play with this? And I'm like, no, can't do that. But they do have this wonderful government edition. So we've had some reasons to be disengaged from DCAA, DCMA for a bit, but we're now restarting our dialogue, and they were good reasons, and the government agreed with those reasons, where we sort of deferred regular contact for evolutionary sorts of initiatives. But we're restarting that here in this summer. And so one of the things that I see potential for is that we further sink the hook with them and get them interested. And I can see the possibility that we'll be reaching back to you folks here at EBS, and I would love to be able to see us maybe be able to put on a little bit of a sales demo, a little bit of a practical demo, and see if we could get them to come our way. Because the more we can streamline the process, and the more we all can talk from the same language, the easier it is to communicate and the faster everything goes.
One of the things I failed to mention at the very beginning is that we do have somebody that's walking around taking any questions that you may have. I know Ken talked about it a little earlier, but if you do have any questions for anybody up here on the panel, you can feel free to write some down. Do we have some already? You're all on it. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So one person, I'm just going to read it as it is. Some of you guys have sloppy handwriting. Just kidding. Okay, how do you broach the subject of ProPricer Government Edition with a POC? PCO, sorry. I'll read it again. How do you broach the subject of ProPricer Government Edition with a PCO?
So somebody found you, right? Like somebody said, you got to try this. Or
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So how'd that go?
So what the deal was is that the contractor actually contacted us because we were having problems with their files. They threw them into Excel, and they were so big that we had to buy the 64 gigabyte computer just to process all the pivot tables and everything. And it was causing the government a lot of time and resources in the negotiating. So they came to us and just says, hey, do you realize that we can give you this file that you can manipulate? You can see how everything's done. So it was more of a presentation by the contractor coming to the government saying, hey, this is what it's powerful to do. But you have to have the right audience, because the procurement people, they really don't understand estimating. They don't understand how to do the cost evaluations and the reviewing of the proposals. So they got all the estimators and the people that were in project controls and did that demonstration. So really, it's getting the right people. The dollar value, once we looked at the dollar value that we saved with resources that we had to use, we were like, man, this is like a bargain. I mean, not get rid of people, but
we should charge more for.
No, I'm not saying you have to charge more. Government, we always look what's best value to the government, and so we looked at it as the best value, and that just, and then they showed us, hey, you can estimate in this thing, because the government, has trying to be an administration of a program. So we saw that we can get a lot of tech support from ProPricer, and it's been great support. So all of it sold itself once it got in front of us. But it took the contractor, really making sure that the government understood how valuable it is to them. They just don't understand estimating. So when you're talking estimating program, they don't understand the value of it. But when you give them the government edition and you can show how it's done by comparing, you get all the algorithms, you get to, and man, that opens their eyes. So having somebody who's knowledgeable on how the government does their evaluations and proposals, that's important when you guys give that presentation to the agency.
So essentially, you all become the advocates, right? Because
yes.
When you're dealing with that frustrating situation where you have to kind of fight to get information back and forth or pushing like that, just telling somebody there's a better way.
Yeah, and showing them. I mean, I'll tell you, like we have to do the labor rates and we have to see the buildups and everything. And it's a very time-consuming process. And just showing, because we in the government, we have to go and look at your unit prices, with your labor rates, your overheads, your burdens, and how you calculate stuff. And I'll just tell you, it sold itself. And that's why we've now adopted it and trying to bring it forward more, is because of the power it has, models and building all that in that program. And for us, we're one of a kind, because we're at the Hanford site where it's cleanup, and you don't really have databases on cleanup. And so these are really good databases. So it just sells itself. But I say you get in front of the procuring officer and you talk with the cost and the price analysis people, and I think that working that out and showing that value, that's the best way to get in front of them.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, another aspect would be, we've got one division that had been providing an alternate tool for many, many years, and their customer was used to that. And as they evaluated ProPricer and decided to go onto that platform, their customer took a look at ProPricer as well, and it was close to selling itself. But just the fact that we changed tools let them take a look at that as well. But otherwise, there are cases where our contracts team, in conjunction with our estimating teams, do point out, just like you said, we've got this tool, you can get data. There's a government edition out there that you can purchase, and makes our work between us much more easy.
That's always a tough thing, right? Implementing a new tool. Like there being a direction from somewhere that says we're going to do something different. It scares people, right? Because I now have to learn my way through an application, or am I going to figure out all the tips and tricks and tools that this thing can do, or am I going to use it the right way, or why do we have to do this? It's just convincing people to try something different is a very unique process.
I have a question for Ben.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic that your team has adopted ProPricer, the government edition. I'm wondering what type of training you guys invested in. Did you take some time to invest in some training to get to
So ProPricer has been helping us along here. So we've had them come out to the site because we have a lot of people. And so we've been bringing them in 1 week, at a time for training. So we train our estimators on how to use it. So they started at the beginners and in the advanced session. And then we've been working with as we develop our cost reports, we really have been relying heavily on our problems with ProPricer. And so they've been working with our resources. We have IT support. We have estimators. And so all together, that's the training we've been putting in. We're just getting ready to roll out our cost evaluation module that we're going to be working with ProPricer. So they're going to come in, and they've been great. They've been coming into our place, but we have a large group. I mean, we're talking 30, 35 people. So it's better for us to train our resources that way. And then our leads, manage the database. So we've invested a lot of training into this. Not as much because we're just getting ready to roll it out. And I think you'll start seeing, the government will be doing more and more training on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great path forward.
Yeah.
But I understand the question as well. It's, how do you address your customers when not everybody is ProPricer users, right? So what we see in the few procurements that we've been involved with where there is an avenue to submit data directly to the government in ProPricer files, there's also that ability to send in an XML file as well. So if you didn't have it, you could put it in a particular format and the government could still read it. But it's the level playing field that's kind of the question here, right? Mm-hmm. The government certainly wants to be fair to everybody in the procurement process.
Right. Yeah. And that's where we're very cautious. That's why we give them a load file that the contractors need to fill out.
Here you go.
And everybody fills out the same way, but we've developed a tool so that we can load the files, and so it's working great.
Yeah.
And I mean that is the downside, is that you've got to convince the customer community that it's worth making the investment of money and time and resources and training to make the move. And so what's the cost benefit analysis, and only they can do that. But I think our need is to be an honest broker and sort of try to open their eyes and make them want to do that within their own environment, so that they can say, yes, here's the investment we have to make in the short term, but here are the benefits we reap in the long term, and how do those balance out? The decision has to be made. The other caution is you have to be careful of which of your customer community you really want to try to convince to make the move. I can guarantee you, fortunately, we don't have to deal with these folks. They're a very small bit of business that we do with them, but I have a customer who will send us RFPs and say, well, we want you to submit your your pricing in Excel, and you think no problem because I'll just export full pricing, and zip, here it is, and it's a wonderful thing. The only problem is they say they want to see it in Excel 2003. and export full pricing is not that backward compatible, so that still gives us a little bit of fits. And so that's a customer that is probably a long way from being sold on the benefits of going to ProPricer. But fortunately for the larger customer community, I think the snowball is rolling downhill. It's multiple snowballs that are rolling downhill, and some of them are bigger than others. So it's just finding ways to be able to continue to push them on and help them gain the momentum.
2003?
2003. And we've called you folks to say, is there any way? And you're like, yeah, good luck with that. and I don't blame you, because you can't go back all the way to Lotus 1, 2, 3.
Right.
But and I suspect there are some people in the government who are still sitting there with an amber monitor and doing slash and the customer community is diverse, and everybody's going to make their own decisions. But the trend, I'm hoping, is that the snowballs are picking up. More snowballs are picking up momentum than are sitting stuck back in 2003.
You have another question?
Is this on? Oh, okay. Well, actually, to that, this question is for Scott at Leidos. How have you dealt with proposal teams who want models that provide real-time results and believe only Excel can provide that?
I didn't catch.
Yeah,
I didn't quite catch it.
How have you dealt with proposal teams who want models that provide real-time results but believe only Excel can do that?
So I think the presumption there is if you're using ProPricer, it's taking a lot of time to get data into models that can be given to proposal teams and decision makers. And I don't subscribe to that theory. And it's mostly because it's what type of tools do you build that turn your bases of estimate into import files into ProPricer. And if that's done as part of the BOE tool, it doesn't take any extra time, does it? Right? In fact, it's quicker than you could do any other way. So it's a good point. I think it's that interface between how you're gathering estimates, how you're structuring that data in such a way that it can be imported into your pricing tool. If you master that, you've beat this problem.
Another aspect, though, is that change from your 8.9 architecture several years ago to the 9, where it is doing that real-time processing. Yes, you get the data in, but it's there real-time. So it's made a big difference in the performance. We use the tool in the client mode, so you're using the power of your local desktop to make that calculation very quickly. So I agree. There's a newer version. I'm not quite sure. ProPricer does a very good job of getting the calculations done very quickly.
Sometimes that's scary, though, right? You see the numbers change. Whoa.
Yeah. But
go ahead. No, go ahead.
If you haven't taken that step to integrate your BOE development into files, I could understand the question, right? It could take a lot of time. I mean, if you're looking at various Excel-based inputs, back of the envelope stuff, and whatever you might get, then you've got to structure all that data and get it into your database. So that would take time. So just having that structured approach, estimating approach, alleviates the issue.
Right, and I would echo what you said, that you want to have a mechanism to be able to drive the BOE process and get results that can be quickly imported. One of the evolutionary steps that I'd like to see us take, and I think I alluded to it earlier, is to try to integrate ProPricer Estimator, because then the estimating community is putting their own information directly into the tool and seeing results real time, and everything they do on the estimator side flows through to us on the contractor edition side in pricing. And so, adjustments can be made real time. And we have a group in our space systems unit in Manassas, Virginia. And I just know no matter how fast we get importing the information. It's still not fast enough for them. And they are the real nutty professor types there is no such thing as a significant digit with our Manassas group. No number is too small for them to put it under the microscope and increase the power on it. And I just know they would just love Estimator. And so that's one of if I am successful in getting some pilot programs launched, that's one of the places that I want to hit first, because I know I'm going to hit a home run with my Manassas folks if they come on as Estimator.
And Michael, is that Estimator Edition is now using the API, the external one, as well? Is that what I understand?
So there's two different. There's the one that's the desktop install application, and then there's the cloud-based version. The cloud-based version or the web-based version is something that's a completely standalone, separate instance where the estimators go and fill in and then can submit that proposal directly to ProPricer. It no longer shares a database. It's their own environment.
But the reason I bring it up is that there is that new feature in the tool, the API, where you can build it works well with the export-import task res files, but now there's a feature where you can almost build your interface to push it very quickly from your BOE tool into ProPricer, also reducing time as we do move data back and forth. So that's another new feature.
Do we have experience on the panel or out in the audience with doing some sort of integration like that, using the API to right now we all have to worry about getting rates in from finance or taking something from procurement or your materials and getting them loaded in. And even the estimator, like they prepared their data and it's just your job to get it into ProPricer, right? Has anybody had experience with solving that problem, getting something
one of our
integrated?
divisions did exactly that. They had their custom BOE tool. There was a lot of other features in their BOE tool, but they actually send the data back and forth, and they even use some of the spreading information from ProPricer to help their authors. But yes, they did master that. It's worked very well for them.
My big philosophy is I would like you to be able to do more with ProPricer by actually using it less. So where can we save you time? How can we remove button clicks or hand hammering data into the application? And the API that Les is talking about is a way for you to take any other system and connect it to ProPricer, so that when you have things like rates or materials that need to be input or updated or priced, that type of thing, you can do that with ProPricer.
I guess I will throw in as another part to that is, yes, you do have to have a commitment of the resources, your IT team, to be able to do that, but that was a choice we made, and it, like I said, worked well for that.
That's great. Do we have another question?
Sure. Okay. On the subcontract import function, is the subcontractor just inputting prices or costs in an electric file versus a signed assertion on letterhead from the company?
So if a subcontractor also has ProPricer, they build a proposal just like the Prime does, right? They've got the same task and WBS structure in the proposal. They've got their same resources. Everything gets priced up. But in that transfer process, you have a couple of options that allow you to prepare the data for the contractor edition for the Prime. And it does things like takes the resources and converts them into the subcontractor type. It takes and rolls up the pricing to whatever level you pick, so you can pick your grand total price and pass that through. You see all of your individual burden elements, all of the things that it takes to price those resources up, and it packages it in a way that you can present it to your customer. So you don't have to show the overhead or the G&A, the profit fee. All of that stuff can get rolled into whatever wrap rate you provide, and then they can load it directly into their proposal. There's no copying and pasting or putting stuff in a template or a format. They take that file and they say, I want to put these resources that you've given me on a specific WBS or a specific task and put them in the place where they belong, so that they're instantly priced, and then you can attach your own burdens on top of that. But it's no different than what you were used to in seeing ProPricer. They've got their own version of ProPricer. It's just an easier way to get that data loaded in. I hope I answered that question.
There were a couple of setup things that you would want to do ahead of time. You want to make sure you agree on your summary fields. And, of course, they have resource names. Depending on how you want to bring them into your system, you can use their names and turn them into subcontractor cost, or have a mapping so you convert their costs. But essentially you end up with their priced values in your Prime proposal.
And you get options to do those types of things. So as the subcontractor, you have options when you create that export file. where you can say, here's how I want to load the data or how I want to roll it up and prepare it. But on the on the prime side, you have that same option where when you bring that data in, how do I want to reclassify these resources? What names do I want to use? I want to put some sort of identifier. How do I rename these things? But know that you're not affecting the cost in any way. So where do they go and how do they get there is kind of the decision that you make when you bring it in. But it's still a very quick and easy process.
Okay, I have another one. So this is specifically for Ben, but maybe all of you guys can chime in here. How long after the adoption of ProPricer did your agency see results/cost reductions?
Well, that was almost immediately. We were reviewing a change proposal that was in the billions of dollars, and it took us almost 5.5 months to process with probably about 20 people. And that's when the contractor came back to us and said, hey, we need a quicker time. We need, more turnaround. And they introduced us to this, and we went down to 3 people on the next change proposal that was equivalent to the same amount. And what we didn't realize the cost savings was going to be that huge. Okay, because we were not real familiar with the ProPricer at the time. We looked at it as an estimating software, and the value there was good. We didn't see how it would really pertain to us in the evaluation and the cost price analysis. But man, we had an agency back in Georgia that was taking care of all of our proposal adjustments in round 1. We had one guy doing all the adjustments and validation and stuff. So it was huge. It was just, we went right into it without any fear that maybe we were going to do something wrong, because it was very self-explanatory, and we trained just a handful of people and went forward to it. And that's really what catapulted ProPricer where we're at, is management and senior level people were like, I just got done processing with 30 people, and then you only asked me for 4 people. That's how big it was, and our time was shortened. We didn't have the errors that we had, and when we sat down with negotiations, it was to the government's advantage. I'm going to just tell you, it's a government advantage, because now we have an ability to look at all the different what-if scenarios. If we don't like the technical approach, we can segregate that out, and if there's errors or estimating assumptions. So, but we saw it right away.
And that's almost confusing. Like, you're what?
I know. A lot of people said, well, did you do a thorough evaluation? We did. We had the same, we have to go through the same rigor. We had to go through the same audits, the same validations, the same labor rates. So we didn't do anything different. The problem, the nice thing is we spent all of our time sorting the data.
Rather than recreating it.
Right. And we had to pull things out, and if we made an adjustment, contractors have such a complex burden algorithms that they use. So for us to recreate that, we're usually wrong. And so it's hard to pinpoint these proposals. So when you have something like that, it was just, so we saw the improvements on that.
Well, I know we're kind of running low on time, so I guess this is going to be the last question.
Okay.
What makes ProPricer a more superior product than others that are on the market?
We asked that question, right? Like, that didn't come from the audience. Yes.
Well, I'm just going to go. The government uses M2. It's an MCASIA Corps of Engineers type of program, and so from our standpoint is that with ProPricer, the estimating end of it has a better way of loading in our data and keeping it archived, and changing labor rates and normalizing stuff. So from our perspective, it's up to date. It's we're able to utilize the reports, customize the reports, and send them out to all people. Where other programs, you have to stay within the program and then PDF it. So we've, from our perspective from the government, we thought that ProPricer gives us the latitude to utilize it throughout, even if you don't have the knowledge of ProPricer.
I guess I'll add that I have seen another tool, but it isn't quite as mature as ProPricer in the ability to do the what-ifs, the multiple reporting, and of course now it's the speed is very, very good as well. So it's pretty easy to stay with ProPricer versus looking at. But obviously, as a company, we have to also look at every option out there. But still, that's why we've stayed with ProPricer.
It's good to hear that people have been using it for like 25 years or 18. It's never a bad thing.
Yeah, I think, back to my own initial use of the tool, going back 25 years, it was with a DOS-based version of ProPricer. So I've seen it evolve over the years. Having said that, just like Les said, when you're making a decision for a corporation on which tool to adopt, you better be looking at alternatives, right? And, easiest decision ever. There just wasn't a close second as far as we were concerned for what we were looking for. One other interesting dynamic Michael had mentioned about, people who start into ProPricer and whether they succeed or not. Let me tell you a story. When we first started into rolling out ProPricer within the corporation, something interesting happened. We had a new member join our team, actually from inside the corporation. It was from Project Control. And this young lady, she comes into our team and we say, hey, we're using ProPricer. She salutes, and she learned faster than anybody, right? And that's faster than long-term, I'll call them pricing professionals. So there's this mental block you got to get over, right? It's, if you've been using ProPricer or Excel for so long, then you're so comfortable with it.
Yeah.
There's this block that says that I'm not sure if I want to make that switch. So it's an interesting story, isn't it? Just somebody who comes in new and said, hey, that's how we're going to do it. And they picked it up faster than anybody. So it's definitely doable. I've seen the cycle so many times, and it's from when people first start to use the tool to when they become, pretty darn good at it. It's just a few months, right, of continued use, of support along the way, good training. And, my objective with everybody that works on our team at Leidos, it's no matter what curveball is thrown your way, you can handle it using this tool. But you got to work to get there, right? And again, I've said it before, but having the platform of this session, everybody here going through some training over the next few days, a great opportunity to get there.
Well, and quickly, we didn't move from Excel to ProPricer. We had a homegrown tool that had existed in my company for over 20 years. And there was, when it was clear that the change in technology, change in infrastructure was going to make that tool no longer economically feasible, we were looking for the next tool. We were steering toward ProPricer. I sort of sensed the future, and I said, I want that tool. And so I was doing some work in version 8.9 when most of my company was still using the old tool, and whenever I quickly learned, because of the power and the flexibility, just the very straightforward way that ProPricer is put together, going back to the old tool was going back to stone knives and bearskins. And so when I'd have to do a proposal on the old thing, I'd say, don't send me back to the stone knives and bearskins. But I had to go back and do that anyway. So that was a helpful thing when we trained over 200 persons to move over to the ProPricer platform. It was even the people who didn't want to give up their security blanket quickly learned the value of the power and the flexibility of the tool. And one of the things that I was able to put in their minds as we were training is my dad was an engineer who spent his entire life in defense contracting. And he would say, you spend it like it comes out of your own wallet. And that helped, I think, people learn that there's a better way than the way we're doing it, and we owe it to ourselves, to our customers, to take that better way and embrace it.
I know we are out of time. I think I appreciate how easy it was for us to fill up an hour's worth of space by just having a conversation, sitting around and talking together. So thank you very much for contributing and being a part of this panel. And thank you for audience involvement as well. But hopefully the first session has gone off very well for all of us.